Have you ever moved to a new place, hoping for a fresh start, only to find something completely unexpected? What happens when two strangers step into your life and turn everything upside down? This story is about new beginnings, unexpected connections, and the kind of passion that can change your life forever. Stay with me, because this one will leave you breathless. Moving to a new place was supposed to be a fresh start, a chance to leave the past behind and begin again. But what I didn't expect was how exciting it would become, or how two older men would change everything. It all started on the day I moved in. I was alone, surrounded by boxes, in a house that still smelled of fresh paint. My marriage had ended abruptly, and I was determined to start over. But as I stood there, overwhelmed by the mountain of furniture and belongings, I heard a deep voice behind me. "Need a hand?" I turned around, and there they were. Two men, older, rugged, and built like they could lift me as easily as my furniture. The first one, Mark, was tall with salt and pepper hair and piercing blue eyes. His hands were strong, and he had a confident smirk that made my heart skip a beat. The second man, David, was broader, with dark hair and a slow, knowing smile that sent a shiver down my spine. I should have said no, but instead I said, "I could really use some help." They moved my furniture like it was nothing. Their muscles flexed under their shirts, and sweat glistened on their skin in the sunlight. I couldn't help but notice things I shouldn't. The way Mark's shirt stretched over his broad shoulders, the way David's voice rumbled when he laughed. By the time we finished, I was out of breath, and not just from moving. "You didn't have to do all this," I said, brushing my hair from my face. Mark smirked. "We couldn't just watch you struggle." David leaned against the doorframe, his arms crossed, watching me with an intensity that made my stomach flutter. "Let me thank you properly," I said before I could think better of it. "Dinner," Mark said. It wasn't a question, it was a statement. David's smirk deepened. "Tomorrow night." I wasn't nervous. At least that's what I told myself. But as I set the table the next evening, smoothing my dress over my hips, I couldn't ignore the butterflies in my stomach. I wanted everything to be perfect. When they arrived, they looked even better than I remembered. Their button-down shirts were crisp, their aftershave subtle but intoxicating. The wine flowed, the food barely touched, and the tension between us was thick, palpable. Then, a single touch changed everything. I reached for the salt at the same time as Mark. Our fingers brushed, and instead of pulling away, he lingered. His thumb grazed my wrist, slow and deliberate. I looked up, and David was watching, his jaw tight, his grip on his glass firm. The air crackled with electricity. "I should clean up," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Mark leaned back, his eyes dark. "Leave it!" David's lips curled into a smirk. "Yeah, we've got better things to do." What happened next was a blur of heat and desire. Mark kissed me first, his hands on my waist, pulling me against him. His lips were warm, demanding, and yet controlled. I barely had time to react before I felt David behind me, his chest pressed against my back, his breath hot against my ear. "Relax," David murmured, his voice a low, soothing growl. "Let us take care of you." A shiver ran through me, not from nerves but from anticipation. Mark's mouth traveled down my throat, teasing with soft, deliberate kisses. David's lips followed, brushing the sensitive skin beneath my ear, his stubble sending a delicious shudder down my spine. Their hands moved in perfect rhythm, one igniting sparks, the other fanning them into flames. Mark's grip on my waist tightened, possessive and sure. His body was firm, hard muscle against my softness, making me feel small, feminine, wanted. David's fingers slid through my hair, tilting my head back, exposing my throat to him. "You're beautiful," Mark murmured against my collarbone, his voice rough and hungry. David's chuckle was low and knowing. I think she likes this. Mark smirked against my skin. I think she needs this. And he was right. I needed this. The feeling of being desired, of being touched with purpose, of two men devouring me like I was something worth savoring. Mark's grip kept me steady as David's hands explored, tracing every curve, every dip, every soft place. They played off each other effortlessly, teasing me higher, pushing me deeper into sensation. Every touch set me on fire, every whispered praise, every rough caress, every teasing stroke built the heat inside me until it was unbearable. And then when I thought I couldn't take any more, they took me further. Mark's hands anchored me, holding me exactly where they wanted me. David's lips were relentless, finding every place that made me shiver, made me gasp, made me crave more. Their bodies pressed against mine, strong and unyielding, guiding me into a rhythm that felt as natural as breathing. "That's it," Mark whispered, his voice thick with satisfaction. Just like that. David's fingers traced my spine, his touch both teasing and possessive. "Look at you," he murmured, his voice dripping with admiration. "You're incredible." I arched against them, every nerve ending on fire. Pleasure built, cresting, crashing over me in waves. Mark's grip tightened, grounding me. David chased every last aftershock, his touch relentless, worshipping, refusing to let the moment end. When the tension finally snapped, I shattered in their arms. My breath broke, my body trembled, and still they didn't stop. They carried me through the descent, through the slow, aching release, until I collapsed against them, utterly spent, utterly satisfied. For a long time, none of us moved. Mark pressed a lazy, lingering kiss to my shoulder, his breath warm against my skin. David's hand ran down my spine, soothing, grounding, keeping me exactly where I wanted to be. I let my eyes close, a slow, satisfied smile playing on my lips. I had been searching for a fresh start. I just hadn't expected it to find me like this. And as I lay between them, breathless and content, completely undone, I realized something. Maybe this wasn't an ending at all. Maybe it was just the beginning. The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions. Mark and David became a constant presence in my life, and I found myself drawn to them in ways I couldn't explain. They were different from anyone I had ever known, strong, confident, and unapologetically themselves. Mark was the more dominant of the two, always taking charge, always knowing exactly what he wanted. But beneath his tough exterior, there was a tenderness that surprised me. He had a way of looking at me that made me feel like I was the only person in the room. David, on the other hand, was more laid back, with a quiet intensity that was just as captivating. He had a way of reading my thoughts, of knowing what I needed before I even realized it myself. Together, they were a force of nature, and I couldn't get enough of them. But as the weeks turned into months, I began to wonder where this was going. Was this just a fling, or was it something more? I had been so focused on starting over that I hadn't stopped to think about what I really wanted. One evening, as we sat together on the couch, I finally worked up the courage to ask. "What is this?" I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Mark looked at me, his blue eyes piercing. "What do you want it to be?" I hesitated, unsure of how to answer. David reached over and took my hand, his touch warm and reassuring. "We're not going anywhere," he said. "Not unless you want us to." His words were like a balm to my soul. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I belonged. Life is full of unexpected twists and turns, and sometimes the best things come when we least expect them. This story is a reminder that it's never too late to start over, to take a chance, and to embrace the unknown. If you've ever found yourself at a crossroads, unsure of which path to take, remember this. Sometimes the most beautiful beginnings come from the most unexpected places. Thank you for joining me on Long Life Wisdom. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more thought-provoking content. Until next time, take care of yourself, and remember, life is a journey, and every step matters.